The changing world of visual arts next. When you look at a work of art, a painting, sculpture, etc., it may not be obvious that, like most other things, art too is influenced by the world around it. You may not realize that what you see also shapes your own ideas. In this chapter, we will be looking at the change in the world of visual arts during the colonial period and how these changes are linked to the wider history of colonialism and nationalism. Colonial rule introduced several new art forms, styles, materials, and techniques which were creatively adapted by Indian artists for local partners, partners and make market in both elite and popular circles. You will find that many of the visual forms that you take for granted today, say a grand public building with domes, columns, and arches, a scene's landscape, the realistic human image in a portrait, or in popular icons of gods and goddesses, a mechanically printed and mass produced picture had their organic in their period we will discuss in this chapter. To understand this history, we will focus primarily on the change in one spheres, painting and printmaking. Next, new form of imperial art from the 18th century, a streams of European artists came to India along with the British traders and rulers. The artists brought with them new style and new painting that began producing pictures which became widely popular in Europe and helped shape western of India. European artists brought with them the idea of realism. This was a belief that artists had to observe carefully and depict faithfully what the eye saw. What the artist produced was expected to look real and lifelike. European artists also brought with them the technique of oil painting, a technique with which Indian artists were not very familiar. Oil painting enabled artists to produce images that looked real. Next, not all European artists in India were inspired by the same things. The subject they painted were varied, but invariably they seemed to emphasize the superiority of Britain, its culture, its people, its power. Let us look at a few major trends within imperial art next. One popular imperial tradition was that of pictures, landscape painting. What was the picture square shape? This style of painting depicted India is a quaint land to be explored by traveling British artists. Its landscape was rugged and wild, seemingly untamed by human hands. Thomas Denial and the nephew William Denial were the most famous of the artists who painted within this tradition. They came to India in 1785 and stayed for 7 years, journeying from Calcutta to northern and southern India. They produced some of the most picturesque landscape of Britain's newly conquered territories in India, their large oil paintings on canvas were regularly exhibited to select audience in Britain, and their album of were eagerly bought up by a British public keen to know about Britain's empire. Fig 2 is a typical example of a picturesque landscape painted by the denials. Notice the ruins of local buildings that were once grand. The buildings are reminders of past glory, remains of an ancient civilization that was now in ruins. It was as if this decaying civilizations would change and modernize only through British governance. Next, another tradition of art that became immensely popular in colonial India was portrait painting. The rich and the powerful, both British and Indian, wanted to see themselves on canvas. Unlike the existing Indian tradition of painting portrait in miniatures, colonial portraits were life-size images that looked lifelike and real. The size of the paintings itself projected the importance of the patrons who commissioned these portraits. This new style of portraiture also served as an idle means in displaying the lavish lifestyle, wealth, and status that the empire generated.